But I want to stay with David, because what David is doing is exactly what touches the heart of my daughter. And in case you can stay here for a minute, you will see my daughter. My name is Roland, and I'm, as you can hear it, I'm part of Germany from those days, which you can see, where we still had this wall dividing East and West Germany. And as a young boy, when I was age 10, I crossed this wall for the first time from west to east. I came back having met the most wonderful people in my life, and I told my father when I came back, who was an editor-in-chief and who was not allowed to join me because journalists were evil, maybe still are, and I said, this wall has to vanish. This is the biggest nonsense, having soldiers and machine guns asking me, a 10-year-old, what am I carrying in my suitcase? They were not nervous about the bananas, which were not existing in East Germany. They were nervous about books. My father reacted as a typical father, and he said, Roland, you need to pick goals which you can reach, and this wall will be there forever. So go for something else. As I'm a little stubborn, I stick to my goal. 14 years later, November 9th, 1989, I was in East Berlin celebrating the wall coming down. We can do things we have no idea that we can do them. It's a question of getting the walls down up here. We are no longer going against the ones with the machine guns. Who of you think that there's an insurance against media damage? None of you, right? But here you go. Since 10 years, Allianz, if this works, next, maybe next. Oh, I come from music, I don't like IT. So you would find here the Reputation Protect insurance run by Allianz, insurance company around the world, insuring companies against my profession. I'm a 5th-generation journalist. Can you imagine? There's an insurance product existing, helping companies dealing with reputational damage caused by the FT, by Wall Street Journal, by BBC. And you would think this is not possible. That's 10 years ago. Since 5 years, you can invest, thanks to research, not only in the SDGs according to the top 500 stock-listed companies. You can pick your SDG, and where's David? David would be the number 1 on SDG 14, right? As my daughter is. And I wanted to buy my daughter the stock of Swatch, because Swatch is the most committed company for SDG 14. I called my bank, and they said, Roland, we are no longer in your century, we are in this new century, and you can't buy us stock in terms of that we hand out this piece of paper which we used to have, which I wanted to give my daughter, the number 1 plastic warrior on the world. I couldn't do that. And that is why I'm driven into this whole process. We need to merge both sides of the world, the last century, with the good parts of the last century, with today's world, with all this tech and development, where we sometimes lose the hearts. But let me get back to that. 30 years ago, I started getting on the nerves of my clients, which are Deutsche Bank, Goldman Sachs, and all these finance geeks, who tried to tell me and Carl and all the others, when we approached them and said, why don't you invest in principles? Why don't you invest in ethics? Why don't you invest in standards? And the Deutsche Bank, the Allianz, the Goldman Sachs, all of them, who think that they are super smart, they said, if you add to the investment logic additional criteria, such as ethics or the SDGs, this will cost basis points. And that's not good for us. Well, 5 years ago, the SDGs were announced, and I spoke with Al Berkeley, the former president of NASDAQ, and I spoke with Joe Casugal, and I said, why don't we set up an SDG fund where we are mapping the top 500 companies and we read line by line by line how they explain how they had spent their money last year and what they are planning to do in future. And we map these companies in red, yellow, green. Red would be a chairman, a CEO, a CFO who is not finding one word, not one sentence when he or she is explaining what they did in the past and what they want to do in future, talking about how do they deal with their female employees. SDG 5, gender equality. No word on education, no word on water, no word on David leaving the room now on plastics. Not one single sentence on any of the 169 targets, which who has agreed on? 193 heads of states. When? On September 25, 2015. Where? In our home. What is our home? What is your home? The League of Nations, now formerly known as, or now known as, the United Nations. After 6 years of talk, 193 heads of states agreed on these 17 goals with the 169 targets. And as if that's not enough, that never happened before in life. They agreed on a timestamp. When Angela Merkel raised, when Obama raised, when all the other presidents and heads of states raised to say these 17 SDGs will become a reality, they said this becomes a reality in Germany, in Brazil, in Azerbaijan, in Japan, in 193 countries, not inshallah, whenever we feel like. They agreed on December 2030. So that's 9 more years. That's why we had to start with this. We had to show whether this can be understood by the big boys in business. 5 years later, invested only in those stocks which are green and yellow, guess what we have? We have a cumulative return of 65%. After 5 years, we outperform the MSCI World. We outperform all of them. Why? Because we believe in the SDGs, because we believe that what got the wall down is the same principle of what is the base of the SDGs. You can pick and choose your SDGs you want to be invested in. You can pick and choose and prioritize according to your needs, according to your employees' needs, whatever you are. The time is over that you can get away by saying, oh, I don't have the data on health. I don't have the data on poverty. I don't have the data. You even have the data in the breakdown by region. And most important, it's not just about the commitment, it's about the framing of the fund, that we make sure that the stocks picked are in line with Paris and all the other principles. Now, let's talk real. Isn't it true that those who are talking about, oh, I want to be invested and I want to make an impact, that at the end of the day, do they really want to make impact? Or do they want to make profit? And in case they want to make profit, how about helping them that they can make profit and impact according to their own principles? That they can make profit picking not only the SDGs, but getting the security that those projects they like to do, affordable housing, zero-emission buses in different cities, etc., they can have this, they can pick the region even, that they say, oh, Africa is too risky, but let's do Asia, and within Asia only certain countries. They can do that because we selected with UN Habitat the cities. So according to your investment will, you can now get the security that if you want to change zero-emission buses, you want to invest in 500, fine. If you want to invest in 5,000, fine with me as well. If you want to invest in 50,000, no problem. Why? Because we have so many cities, mayors who are now as well not only convinced, but very sure, implementing the SDGs in their towns. So you have this platform where you can pick it with the cities. You can invest, and that is what I wanted to share with David. You can even do your tree planting initiatives in those secured regions you would like to be invested in, whether it is Africa, Asia, and you can give my daughters the payback when she's planting her 50 trees a year. Other can plant 500 trees, other can do more. I'm stopping now. I want you to stay in contact with Marco, because we will turn this NOAH conference in something completely different. It reached a certain level so far, but that's just the overture. We are now ready to start the real opera. And this we have to do together. Thank you. Bye-bye.